Deepti Laurent is with me on the set to take a look at what the papers have been saying today. Hi, Deepti.
Hi, Jeannie.
Now, you're going to start with international reaction to the French government's decision to suspend those fuel tax hikes.
That's right. One of a couple of decisions made by Emmanuel Macron's government in an attempt to really appease the anger of the Yellow Vest movement. It won't be enough, though, as you see from the Independent's front page. Macron caves in, but the Yellow Jacket protesters vow to stay on. Indeed, they're planning more protests later in the week. Here in France, of course, making front page news as well, the French communist paper L'Humanité is furious with these measures, slamming the government for not attacking the real issues at the heart of this grassroots movement, which is they want better salaries, better pensions, and fiscal equality for all French workers. Crumbs are not enough, the paper says. Meanwhile, Macron is portrayed as a Gallic rooster by Peter Brooks, a Times cartoonist, a Gallic rooster who has his head cut off, you might say, presumably by the Yellow Vest movement.
President Macron's certainly not getting a lot of support from the papers today.
Not at all. Politico, for Politico, the website, they say the French leadership has played its hand and the Yellow Vest movement has called its bluff. Macron's climb down shows that street power is back on in France. Prime Minister Edouard Philippe's announcements gave the activists the first sign that the government is willing to bend. This despite Emmanuel Macron's previous comments perceiving street protesters as those who are opposed to change. Now, one writer for the British daily The Telegraph says while he doesn't condone the Yellow Vest movement, he nonetheless calls the president preening. Macron is learning at his own cost that you can't save the planet on the back of the poor. Macron himself represents what's wrong with the attitude of so many world leaders, and this is why it's such an international issue, that he's good at lecturing us on how we should cut back on on the ways that we pollute the environment, but his own lifestyle is exempt from that very scrutiny. His ecology policies stink, you might say. Macron, le pieu here, the stinky odor of globalism that he leaves in his wake is arousing the fury of the Yellow Vest protesters and also rotting the flowers of the carbon tax.
Now, as for the U.S. President Donald Trump, he seems to be a bit confused by Macron's decision to suspend these fuel taxes.
Well, the U.S. president took that decision to mean that Emmanuel Macron is pulling out of the Paris Agreement, and then the U.S. president promptly took credit for inspiring the French president to do so. All of this clearly untrue, very, very bizarre series of events obviously unfolding on Twitter as usual. That's what Raw Story reports. Indeed, since Donald Trump's own climate policy doesn't really pass the smell test, that's what Tom Tolles for the Washington Post says in this illustration here, where you see a factory pumping out carbon dioxide, which is carbon dioxide being a colorless, invisible, and odorless gas, is choked by the stinky smoke screen coming from the White House. Sometimes the cover-up is worse than the crime.
Donald Trump has also appointed himself tariff man in the middle of a series of tweets about a trade compromise reached with China during the G20 summit.
That's right. This is another series of tweets. Anything Donald Trump says is mercilessly mocked, memed, and sent up on the internet. But when he called himself tariff man, it seemed like a gift for internet users, really, promptly sending all of us into much-needed comic relief. This tweet from DPRK says he's not Tariff Man, but Little Tariff Man. It's actually a fake North Korean Twitter account. Trump, of course, called Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man earlier this year. While one user notes there's already a cartoon to accompany Tariff Man. Here you have Donald Trump as the Superman, except he's Tariff Man. His cape fighting job losses and raising prices. He's a man of steel tariffs.
Something completely different now. And a 9-year-old boy has managed to convince his town's leaders to overturn a ban on snowball fights.
That's right. 9-year-old Dane Best is showing his political skills, you might say. He presented his argument at a town board meeting this week in his hometown in northern Colorado. Nearly century-old local laws there forbid the fun wintertime activity as part of wider rules against missile throwing at people, animals, buildings, and any public property. Well, little Dane convinced his local leaders that the law is outdated, adding that he really wants to throw snowballs at his younger brother in all legality. They unanimously voted in favor of his motion.
I think everyone wants to throw snowballs at their little brother. All right, finally, just now, Christmas is almost upon us. And on that occasion, a poll has actually asked Brits to rate the worst Christmas jokes.
You're really going to be slayed by these ones, Jeannie. Let me share some of those jokes. Who is Santa's favorite singer?
Dunno.
Elvis Presley. What did Adam say the day before Christmas?
No idea.
It's Christmas Eve.
Oh, I like that one.
This one I think you might know. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
A stick.
That's right. It's not really a Christmassy one, but apparently gets people rattled up during Christmas. And this one I love. Who is Rudolph's favorite singer?
No idea.
Beyonce.
Aw, I love those. A little bit of Christmas cheer. Thanks for
They're
that,
not
Dipti.
great jokes, but they make us laugh.
Hey, it makes us laugh. Better than nothing. Dipti Laurent, thank you so much for that look at the press review. Thanks to you for watching. Don't forget, you can get a closer look at all of this on our website. That address, france24.com.